port their voices against those who believe differently, against extremists on all sides. To be able to say to Muslims around the world that for all of its faults, and the United States has plenty of them, that what we have demonstrated is the ability of all peoples who want to become part of our nation to live in peace and to prosper. And that it is possible to prosper and to be secure in a Western society. And I think Muslims in this country, with very few exceptions.
Oh, they're doing very well. Economically, if you see, the median income is higher than the American median
income. But they've
income.
Demonstrated that they can live in a Western society that respects them, that supports them, and obviously there are exceptions, especially after 9/11. And it's interesting to see the number of Americans who have risen up against our own government to say, you went too far.
Rabbi, isn't it right that in one way this is for minorities in America has been a rite of passage in a sense, that they kind of go through, and who better than the Jews to have known? And it happened to Catholics, Italian Americans. It's certainly, of course, the biggest has happened to the African Americans, and how they had to organize and struggle and to get their rights recognized. That in the end, it is, as Dr. Anwar said, suddenly people realize, oh, there are Muslims living here, and the Muslims realize, oh, we're living here. And so they had to also get their act together to understand how they organize themselves, how do they secure their rights within the system, because the system has allowed all other minorities prior to them to secure their rights. Well, so it is just, isn't it a kind of a right, this is the passage?
Though we have to remember that the reason that the American Jewish community is as well organized as it is because it wasn't always as you described.
No.
That we went through a period in this country where it was very difficult to be a Jew, when Jewish doctors couldn't practice at all hospitals, when Jews couldn't belong to certain country clubs, when Jews couldn't enter certain universities, including Yale University right up the street from us. And there are lots of examples of that. And for that reason, we had to organize to, as we said in 1654, to take care of our own. I think that we've learned, I think the nation has learned, and we've moved on to a different place. But I think that every minority community it has been in the position of having to remind the rest of the people of this nation that we're here too, and that just as you went through this period of growth, we're here now and you need to support us.
Actually, as a society in the United States, there has been a growth of the society over the past many years. And we, as the current people living in the United States, owe a lot to the previous generations who have actually helped raise the conscience of the society to a certain level. I'll give you a parallel. If, God forbid, the attack like 9/11 had happened in any other part of the world where the tolerance level has not been as much as the United States, can you imagine what would have happened to that perceived minority who may have been responsible for that? And I think we owe it to the previous generation, which include the Italian Americans, the Jewish Americans, the African Americans, who had raised the conscience of the society to the point that for the most people, the reaction was that the neighbors were coming and checking, making sure you were okay. Our neighbors baked a cake for us and said, we are worried about you, eat something. And there were churches and places who had opened up their places and said, look, if anybody feels threatened in any community, the church is always available to protect you.
Right.
And that is the thing. But at the same time,
also the political leaders. I was living in New York, and I remember Mayor Rudy Giuliani being incredibly specific and direct to people that do not attack any Muslims, because then the full force of law will be applied. I think he was right there immediately after the attack on the television, and those kinds of leadership helped a lot.
President Bush spoke out on behalf of Muslim Americans.
Absolutely,
said for tolerance.
Yeah, right, immediately.
On that score, it's very encouraging to me that Dr. Martin Luther King, a great leader, civil rights leader, has a national holiday in his honor, which to me is emblematic of the values that he lifted up. He happened to be a Christian, but he was speaking. He was heavily influenced by the philosophy of Gandhi, the nonviolent. That the humanitarian values and protections of all people are critical, and that we have named a national holiday where everybody gets off work in his honor means that we've come to a place now where the minority persons in this country know that they can be protected by law as well.